Sam Altman has a dark side, which not many people talk about. Take a look at what he said just 5 days ago.
Whether we burn 500 million a year or 5 billion or 50 billion a year, I don't care. I genuinely don't. As long as we can, I think, stay on a trajectory where eventually we create way more value for society than that, and as long as we can figure out a way to pay the bills, like we're making AGI. It's going to be expensive. It's totally worth it.
So here obviously he's making argument for technology improving the living conditions of everybody, and that no matter what the cost is, we should pursue AGI and technologies that improve the world, reduce poverty, stuff like that. And honestly, I think I agree. The issue, however, is that his actions say the exact opposite. So you know the saying, don't look at what they say, look at what they do. Well, with Sam Altman, unfortunately, this applies more than with anyone else. Recently, he went on a tweeting spree, which is actually what caused me to make this video. Seeing him say one thing on Twitter and then behind the scenes trying to do something completely different. So take a look at this tweet. Using technology to create abundance, intelligence, energy, longevity, whatever. It will not solve all problems and it will not make everyone happy, but it is an unequivocally great thing to do and expands our option space. To me, it feels like a moral imperative. Very interesting. So obviously very pro-technology, very pro-accelerating. Let's look at another tweet from just 3 days ago. Prosperity is a good thing actually, growth. Now for those who disagree, just take a look at this chart. This is how different continents improve their life expectancy thanks to technology. So you can see that in Africa, technology wasn't really, adapted until early 1900s, right? But like in Europe and Americas, it was adapted much sooner, and the life expectancy where people, age which people reached, kept rising steadily. And continents where there was no technology, people were dying at 25, 30, which is tragic, obviously. So the argument that technology improves living standards and reduces suffering is very sound. However, this would not be an issue if there wasn't the second side, the other side of the coin, the look at what they do part, right? Because actions speak louder than words. We all know that. And obviously, Sam is advancing the world with OpenAI, but his actions behind the scenes lead to a completely different outcome. Take a look at this. Regulatory capture. In case you're not familiar, you can read this. But basically, it's when companies influence governments to pass regulation that benefits those companies, right? Now, I actually used ChatGPT to write a scenario what regulatory capture might look like in the case of OpenAI. So take a look. It could influence policy. OpenAI could lobby for rules that are very costly to comply with, knowing that while it can afford these rules, smaller AI startups cannot. Limit innovation. It might push for strict regulations on new AI technologies that it already dominates, making it harder for new companies to bring innovative products to the market. And it's no secret that OpenAI is the leading AI research lab in the AI space. I mean, if you go back 1 year, GPT-4 was the king, right? And that's when Sam Altman decided something needs to be done because he saw other companies catching up. Now, before I show you what he actually did, let me quickly tell you about my community where we stand for open source 100%. In fact, I have this module where I show you step by step how to build AI agents that run locally with Llama 3. And I also include my code and prompts in the resources here. And if you have any problems, you can ask the community. We have 600 plus agent builders, or you can join one of our free weekly calls where you can talk to me directly and ask any questions. As you can see, we do one on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So if that sounds interesting, then make sure to join. It's the first link in the description. Now, let's take a look at what Sam Altman actually did. 11 months ago was the first time he appeared in front of Congress. And instead of advocating for, what he says in his tweets, like, technology will create abundance. It's a moral imperative. We have to make sure technology keeps improving, right? The more technology, the better. Well, what did he say to Congress, to people who actually make those regulations? Well, I'm not going to play this because it's 3 hours. You can look at it yourself. It's actually kind of boring. But his point was that AI needs to be regulated, that he believes there is real dangers, right? Obviously, OpenAI are the good guys. Trust OpenAI, right? Because like the lobbying efforts from Microsoft and all that money going straight to the senators' pockets, let's ignore that. OpenAI is the good guys. Obviously, they have to regulate everybody. As soon as there is an open source model, God forbid, as good as GPT-4, regulation, please throw on it, because what if these guys, bad actors, use the open source models, right? That would be terrible if somebody caught up to OpenAI. And this is, this tweet summarizes this perfectly from Yaxin. By the way, great Twitter follow. So this is a response to Sam Altman's tweet of, prosperity is a good thing actually, DD growth. And he responded by showing a screenshot of the New York Times article. OpenAI Sam Altman urges AI regulation in Senate hearing. The tech executive and lawmaker agreed that new AI systems must be regulated. Look at this language. This is the language they use to kind of program the societal perception of AI. It must be regulated, It's like, well, should math be regulated? Should the internet be regulated? Those are like basically human rights, right? To use the internet. I mean, if you cannot use the internet, like you cannot almost do anything in this world. Well, AI, imagine intelligence, right? Imagine if there is an assistant that has 500 IQ, that is smarter than all the people combined. Well, what if you don't have access to it? Can you compete with people who have? Obviously, you cannot. You can't. So AI, access to intelligence, will be a basic human right. In my opinion, it should be. And soon, like this scenario will be true much sooner than people realize. Now, Sam Altman says one thing, prosperity is a good thing, we need more technology. And then he's pushing to regulate others, competitors to OpenAI. Now, I could go here and spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes saying the dangers of regulatory capture, but I would much rather do Bill Gurley justice, because he did a 36-minute speech on this on the All-In Summit, and I'll link this in the description. I must say, this is one of the best keynotes of all time I've ever seen. Like, wow. He explains the history of regulatory capture in other situations like telecom and stuff like that, and here he gets into AI. So pay close attention, and by the way, I highly recommend you watch this.
The more regulation, the better for Coinbase. That's exactly what Stigler would say. Mark Zuckerberg needs, wants, and must have regulation.
So notice this, right? Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, multi-billionaire, Mark Zuckerberg, multi-billionaire, both are urging for regulation. And the reason why that is those companies are some of the biggest donors to both political parties. So lobbying is obviously a huge issue, and the reason why these guys feel confident calling for regulation is because they are paying the people making the regulations. Like, that's why people who go into office, when they exit office, their net worth is like 50x bigger.
I get it, Mark. And Sam's just getting started. He wants regulation too. Now, there's a really scary thing in this AI space. The incumbents that are running to meet with all the government are spreading something that I don't think is accurate or fair. They're spreading a negative open source message. And I think it's precisely because they know it's their biggest threat. And I think...
Notice that just 5 years ago, Sam Altman was pro-open source. OpenAI was fully open source. Well, now, like, how much has changed, right? It's kind of interesting how somebody can go from one of the biggest open source proponents to wanting to regulate open source.
And I think what Meta's done with Llama 2 is actually super interesting.
I'm going to link this in the description, because this is one of the greatest talks, and it will explain the dangers of regulatory capture way better than I can. The conclusion is that Sam Altman is saying one thing and doing the other. Always question what they do. Look at their actions and ask yourself who benefits, who makes money by this, or who just benefits. This question alone can solve almost any puzzle or weird situation where it's not clear why something is happening. Just asking yourself who benefits often leads to the solution. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.